So we're now in order here. We'll go ahead and cover some administrative matters. Our near-term committee calendar. As a rule, we are holding meetings every other week. So we'll be holding our next regular meeting in 2 weeks. However, our schedule also has some special features right now. We're going to be holding a joint meeting with Truro on Monday, February 8th, and that will be at 6 p.m. This will be a short meeting. It will be just a half-hour session where the two committees are going to be meeting. The Truro committee is then going to break out into its regularly scheduled committee meeting. I've been requesting a joint meeting for a while. It ended up we're going to be conducting that again during the first half hour of their meeting. I've also been in touch with Provincetown and trying to see if we can schedule something with them. At a minimum, we'll invite them to participate in our committee meeting. There's also going to be a Wellfleet Community Forum tentatively scheduled for Monday, February 15th. And that will be to collect additional public input regarding two things. One is potential routes for a bikeway through Wellfleet to Truro, and the other is to collect inputs regarding objectives, goals and objectives for the analysis that we're doing, because we want to make sure that we're including all of the public's interests and considerations in the analysis. So February 8th, February 15th, and then of course we'll be holding a regular committee meeting 2 weeks after today. So meeting rules to invite public comment. Christy, you want to cover that real quick?
Sure. The committee invites public comment and input at the end of each agenda item with a 1-minute limit for each speaker. We welcome more feedback through email as well as proposals to the committee.
See, I can't hear you.
What? Can you hear?
Now I can.
Oh dear, again. Okay. Well, we welcome public comment at the end of each agenda item with a 1-minute limit, and also through email and proposals that can be future agenda items.
Right. So one minute per person. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll go over a topic, and then at the end, folks can provide input, a minute per person, and then of course additional input through contacting the committee by email, so that we all have it that way. And our email address, of course, is posted. Okay. Are there any public inputs at this point in the meeting before we go further?
Yes, this is Helen. So you're going to hold a forum, and I hope that you immediately, as soon as possible, in other words, let all the agencies know about this forum, and also the park and the select board, because we're still, that is to say, I brought up again having this round table discussion with all the players, and that still hasn't been organized. The TA has reached out a couple times to the DOT, but I sort of got snippy about it at the last meeting and said, let's do a doodle poll or something, because this, it's been months now. But I would definitely let everybody know, and also do outreach, aggressive outreach to all the abutters. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Helen. I mentioned that the date for the forum is tentative, and that's only because I'm awaiting confirmation from the people who are organize the forums. Although in this time of COVID, of course, the forums have taken on a different flavor. And so we may be their first Zoom forum, it sounds like. But what we're going to do is we'll treat it for town purposes as though we're holding a meeting. For the forum's purposes, this will be a Wellfleet Community Forum. And so they're going to do their normal advertising for this through their own avenues. You raised a great point though, Helen, and that is that we want to make sure that the town government is aware of the forum as well, because of course we want their inputs as well. All right. And regarding abutters, yeah, I wanted to discuss that a little further on, but that you've raised a good point. And that is that we do have a special obligation to consider the concerns and the interests of any potential abutters to a route through Wellesley. So thanks. Okay, next on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last committee meeting. Christie, I'll let you handle this. You've sent everybody the draft minutes, right?
You got it. Everyone has had a nice opportunity with the minutes. Approve the January 15th, 2021 minutes.
I can't hear.
Still, I don't know. I have my speaker on and I don't know, it works in other settings. So can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah, your voice has gone in and out a bit, but I can hear you now.
Okay, I did borrow my son's headphones. That maybe could. I look like a video gamer. Does that work?
Yeah.
Can hear you fine.
No. Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, here we go. I move that we approve the minutes from January 15th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Okay, 4-0, they're approved. All right. Typically in the meeting, we go over the committee's charge because it's important that we keep our focus on what we're doing and why. So, Christy, I know you've got a copy. Could I ask if you'd
Sure.
review that quickly? There we go. Okay, so that's taken from the town website.
So the Bike and Walkways Committee is hereby established to consider ways to provide safe areas for biking and walking. The Board of Selectmen believes that the Select Board, we need to change that these activities should be available seasonally and year-round as they are important means of local transportation, are popular activities in the town and promote good health. The Bike and Walkways Committee is charged with the following tasks: to work with the Cape Cod National Seashore, the towns of Provincetown and Truro, and the Cape Cod Commission to establish the continuation of the bike trail northward into Provincetown, and to prepare a plan for future bike and walking routes throughout the town of Wellfleet.
Okay, thanks, Christy. By the way, your audio is going in and out a little bit again.
Oh, it still is? Okay.
Just, it's interesting. I know you tried a couple of different mics there.
I know.
Okay, any public inputs at this point in the meeting? Okay. Christy, as you pointed out, although the charge mentions the selectmen, of course we know that it's the select board. That's just but those are the words on the town website. The probably hundreds of places to change that on the town website, so it's in work. Okay, well, the main topic, bikeway route through Wellfleet to Truro. There are I think the purpose of our meeting today is mostly to do a heading check on where we're going. There's a lot that's in progress. Let me turn things over to Lance here for a moment. Lance, I know you've been working hard on the draft methodology. Is there anything in particular to report there?
Yes, I think we're really in good shape. We've agreed on the goals, and we've articulated the goals into the specific objectives that the goals should meet. You had a list. I don't know if you were going to show that, Pete.
Based on based on your input, I've got that list, and we can go over that if you'd like.
I think it might be useful.
Okay. Is there anything else in particular regarding stat? We can go over that, but I know we'll get into the details of that list. Other than
Well,
that, go ahead.
We're in good. So the methodology says, look, you gotta start with what is the vision for the pathway in Cape Cod, in general, and then what's the vision for the Wellfleet connection, and we've gone to MassDOT and CCC to make sure that we preserve that vision, and then we've articulated the goals from that, we've articulated the objectives from that, and we're well into the process of articulating the criteria that we take in our hand, and we go out and we look at paths or segments of paths, and we say, okay, does it have this, to what degree, on a 1 to 5 scale. So we're really have done a lot of work. We also have articulated the methodology in preparation for going to the select board to describe what this is, and the overwhelming extent to which it's used on the Cape, in Massachusetts, in the US, and around the world. There's only this methodology, so it's not a big choice. I think we're going to be doing it better than anybody else has done it. So, so we're in good shape.
Okay, Lance, thank you. Can we go ahead and put up the thank you for, let's see, we have that up now. Thank you, Christy. So Lance thank you, first of all, for all the work you're doing on this methodology. You pulled together a lot of ideas that exist in other documents and studies that have been done around the state in particular, but also the country and even internationally. But in looking for our own, as we seek guidance for our own study, we focused on what has Massachusetts done, what has the local region done, so that we, as we move forward with our study, we conform to their vision for what's going on here on the Cape. And I think we've done that pretty successfully. So this draft document captures a draft vision statement. These are all draft right now. This is all work in progress to determine the best connecting route from Cape Cod Rail Trail through Wellfleet to Truro. Now, that's not a vision statement for our committee. It's not a vision statement for the trail. It's a vision statement for our analysis, for the work at hand. And it certainly conforms to the vision statement Massachusetts DOT has put out for what it wants to do out here as well. As does the next statement, the mission statement, which is, if the vision statement can be considered a why do this statement, then the mission statement is a how and what. Use an objective methodology to analyze route alternatives, to plan a primary or spine route through Wellfleet that extends to Truro from the Cape Cod Rail Trail intersection with Old County Road. The route will attract cycling and walking on the Outer Cape, promote the town's best interests, and accommodate an interconnected bicycle and pedestrian network linking the towns of Wellfleet, Truro, and Provincetown with the Cape Cod Rail Trail, Cape Cod National Seashore, and other destinations within the 3 communities. As you might anticipate, most of that verbiage comes from guiding documents at higher levels of government. And that in particular, most of this is quoted from the Cape Cod Commission study that was done in 2016 and 17. It also conforms with, as I said, Mass DOT. Lance and I had a lot of conversations about the guidance for our analysis, because we want to make sure that we're not going off any direction that is in any way different from what the state agencies and others have had in mind as they've looked at this issue in the past. And by the way, that includes the Cape Cod National Seashore, because one of the references that we've been, one of our primary references has been a study that was done between DCR and the National Park Service, the National Seashore in particular, in 2010. So relatively recent, but good inputs, lots of influence on our study coming from that document that the National Seashore participated in. If you could scroll down, Christy, to the goals and objectives. We've talked about our various goals. Lance made mention to the fact that there's been work done on these. Five goals, and then the objectives under each goal, and they're here for review. These are, I want to emphasize, these are draft because we're still seeking public input on these, but this is where we are right now with 5 goals, again, derived from what we see as the important points in the state's own studies, but also what we've seen in successful studies around the country. Safety first, practicality of developing the bike trail, the user experience, user enjoyment is another way to look at it, but it also includes some practical aspects like accessibility, and then information availability to users, and what sort of experience and comfort level and enjoyment can the user get from the trail, not to mention points that go beyond recreation, but just in terms of the practicality to the user of the trail. And then the next point, conservancy. We originally termed this as preservation. Conservancy captures much more meaning in that we're not only protecting, but we recognize the trail will work within a local setting that we want to honor as much as possible. And so we have 3 main points here: environmental impact, town impact, which includes cultural and scenic aspects of the town, and then adjacent property issues, which, Helen, goes to your point of abutters. But I think the term adjacent property goes almost beyond abutters. Lance, I know we've had this discussion about their, and perhaps you can elaborate on what we mean by adjacent property.
There's the property belonging to utilities, National Seashore. It's all the properties that the trail might go through. The town, of course, on the town roads. So it's inclusive of every time a path is, what is off to the left or right, or what are you going through? That's who we mean there. And all of those have to be taken into consideration and the impact minimized.
And not even the properties that are just immediately abutting the trail, but the properties that are in the vicinity of the trail.
So, for example, one of the concerns is I'm not right next to the trail, but I can see it, and it's going to be noisy. It's going to be there are going to be too many lights at night. All of these concerns that are normally raised against bike paths, they should be taken into account.
Thank you. Okay, that pretty well covers it. And then connectivity, the last of the 5 listed goals here. Network accommodation, which means how it connects to existing an existing or planned network. Network improvement potential, broadly speaking, and Lance, please elaborate what network improvement potential really means. Trying to close the gaps where a network in our town makes sense, and looking to the future possibilities of closing some of those gaps.
Right.
And then exploration opportunities. What really is the true value of the trail? And what we try to capture in that last objective is something that goes beyond transportation convenience, which of course is important, but also perhaps looks at more of the recreational side as well. Network accommodation really captures a lot related to practical transportation concerns for people like commuters. Great. Lance, thanks. Are there any comments at this time from the committee regarding these draft goals and objectives? I mean, this continues to be in work and we're obviously still collecting input. Okay, I think we'll move on. Yes.
Hey, Peter, this is Tom. How are you guys?
Yes. Hi, Tom.
Hey, just one thing, just one input, if I could, under conservancy, you mentioned adjacent property. And I know in the previous draft, I missed last meeting, but in the previous draft, you also had something to the effect of private property impact. And I didn't hear Lance or you mention any of that. So I wanted to make sure that didn't fall off the radar.
Adjacent property includes the butters.
Okay, I didn't hear you say that.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
All right, just making sure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no problem, Tom. And yeah, I think it was the description of what we meant by the adjacent property was mostly to talk about the change, which was that we wanted to make sure we included very broadly, not only the private people who were immediately adjacent to the trail, but also others who might be impacted. But yes, definitely that includes, I'm looking for the detailed words here. That would include immediate abutters, of course.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that clarifies it. I just want to make sure it wasn't lost. That's all. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, well, let me, and just to be specific, this is just a list here, but we have some, Lance, if I could borrow the detailed words of that objective, they might answer the question here. So we say that's objective, let's see, adjacent property, that's objective 4C. The path will minimize adverse effects on adjacent private property. The expected path construction will minimize negative impacts on the views, noise levels, and ambient light experience of abutters or others who can view or see the path. So
Great.
definitely including private property.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the clarification. That's good, Peter. Appreciate it.
Sure, thanks. And any inputs, asking for clarification helps us make sure we're on the right path. And if you have anything to add, though, to the objectives,
No,
please feel free.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I took notes on the previous one that was pretty lengthy, and I think it's encapsulated everything in a much more condensed fashion. So whoever put this together looks good to me.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lance, for authoring this. Let's see. Before we get off of the draft methodology, I just wanted to mention also that we have put a request out to the town departments, committees, and boards for input. And Christy, could you put up the text of that email, please? Okay, so I sent this out to the, I actually sent this to Rebecca Eldridge, and then I want to say within about 10 minutes, she had it to every board and committee department that I had requested she send it to, which were most. They were the ones that would be affected by bikeway, and we want inputs from, and that included everybody who we talked about in our committee meetings. So we took all the committee's recommendations and used those. And so it was everyone, including, of course, DPW, fire, police, recreation, beaches, school, and so forth. So this is the email that went out, the text of the email that went to the various, again, town departments, but also the boards and committees and requested their input for goals and objectives for this study by February 12th. And that was sent out on the 19th. So we gave them 3 weeks to provide input to us. And if you could scroll down, please, Christy. There you go. So we did send them the draft goals along with a narrative describing how the objectives would be defined. We've made more progress on the goals and objectives since this was sent out. What's termed preservation here, we've redefined as conservancy, and there's been some additional work done. And then let's see, it goes down one more page. And we've taken a stab at identifying individual objectives to go underneath each goal, which you saw in that other chart. And we'll include these in the minutes, of course. So having sought input from the town departments, committees, and boards due on February 12th, we've also are seeking inputs rather from Truro, Provincetown, from our counterparts there in the town bike and walkway committees. We'll also be in touch with Cape Cod Commission and with others, state, seashore, again, at a working level to put together, to make sure that we've covered their interests in our study, not to represent the town, because we recognize that the select board and the town administrator represent the town. However, Helen, we stand ready to assist the town in representing the town's interests, but we, meanwhile, we'll continue to work within our own charge, which is to conduct this study. And that's the essence of our contact with those outside agencies. Okay, are there any inputs, any comments from the committee?
Yeah, Peter, this is Helen.
And from outside the committee, yes.
Represent the town, represent the town. The select board, of course, needs to be copied with any correspondence, which you seem to have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But in my experience, for example, on the Shellfish Committee, that committee invited and hosted people from agencies and were the primary contact for agencies like the Barnstable County Extension, the Division of Marine Fisheries, and even in some cases, Sarah Peak and Julian Sear. And select board members showed up in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing that gives you authority is your charge. You've been delegated to do certain things. And if you are responsible about communicating clearly with enough time to the select board and the town administrator, you are designated representatives. That's just my opinion, but it's based on years of this kind of situation. Okay, thank you.
Helen, thank you. We certainly stand ready to do that. We're being respectful for the fact that the select board held a meeting with the National Seashore and with others, and in that meeting tasked the town administrator to take the lead on setting that meeting up. And although I've let both the select board chair and the town administrator know that we are offering our assistance, I'd be happy to engage them again, and with a specific recommendation that we can, in fact, lead that effort if they'd like. What I didn't want to do is, in being proactive, end up working at cross purposes with either the select board or the town administrator, since there was already action in place. But if there was to be a handoff of that action, we'd be, I think, well positioned to take it on.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I wasn't talking about necessarily this specific situation. You're right. In other words, the TA is supposed to be setting these things up. But you are one of the groups that's the most important here. And you're simply checking in with her and saying, how can we help? In my opinion, this is just me speaking as an individual, might really help things. How can we help is always a good sentence, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you. And just to close on that topic, and so I will re-engage the town administrator, the select board chair, and make sure that we're on the same page and that they understand that we're interested in pursuing this.
Peter, I'm sorry. It's the select board, not just the chair, always. In other words, when you contact, this formality that sometimes leads to a lot of confusion is, you copy all of us at once, please.
Okay.
We are a clump. Thank you.
Okay. No, that's a good point. Thank you. Are there any other public inputs on the bikeway route methodology? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is the identification of the routes. Big discussion last meeting, complicated discussion last meeting. We went over a lot of different segments of a lot of different routes. We ended up with a list, and I don't know that we need to show that list right now, Christy. We don't, unless somebody specifically requests it. But it's very draft right now. But we have a total of about 20 different alternative routes based on the different combinations of trail segments around town, because there's so many. There's such a network of potential trail segments. At any rate, we're collecting at this point rather than evaluating the routes, so that we can make sure that we have everything in hand before we begin to pass judgment on anything or to begin our analysis. Again, with inputs coming from the town boards and committees, with inputs coming from the public, in particular that February 15th forum. We want to make sure that we've had our joint meeting with Truro, since our trail will end at the Truro, with the Truro line. We talked about breaking the trails down into segments because of the fact that so many of them share particular lengths in common, and that may be the key to doing an efficient analysis. If we evaluate each segment on its own merits, and then a score, so to speak, an analysis score for any particular alternative route would depend upon scoring of the particular segments that make up that route. So any discussion there? Yeah, Lance.
Throw something out. It's a really good, I don't know what these segments are, but it's a really good approach because it can remove any possible bias towards one path or another if you just evaluate segment by segment and then accumulate the scores for a particular path, which is a sequence of some subset of sequence. So it's a great idea to use to really ensure that there's no way that we can have if we had a bias towards one path or another, it won't show up when we do it'll be broken apart when we do the segment evaluation. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. No, and I know what you meant. It won't show up. You mean it won't exist? Bias. I mean, the bias, the chance for bias will be eliminated rather than obfuscated. Okay. The Christy, thank you for all that you did tabulating the results from the last meeting. I know that as you were putting together minutes, you did start to break things out into various segments and started building a word table that identified those segments. And Lance, you put together, working from the other side, an Excel template that we could put alternative routes into. But in this case, as we're talking, we'd identify the segments separately in that spreadsheet. So I think it's going to be a case of taking the information Christie's collecting and inputting it into a database or a spreadsheet rather, using a format such as you've suggested, Lance. Any discussion there? Sound reasonable?
Does,
Good.
can everyone hear my microphone now?
Comes and goes.
Sure. Well, I just wanted to say, just as long as we continue to get input, make sure we're not
I-
missing
I
anything.
can't hear you.
Oh dear. Okay.
When you lean forward, I can hear.
So odd. I don't know. It works in other meetings, but not this one ever. That's okay. I think Ned was going to say something.
No, I was just trying to lean forward to listen better.
Oh, okay.
So Christy, did you have a point that you were going to make there?
Well, I'm afraid you can't hear it, but I just wanted to say, as long as we continue to collect any ideas, and just to thank Tom and Ryan and all the people who have contributed ideas. It's incredible to see them all broken down.
No, that's a good point. I mean, it's when we talk about at this point looking at about 20 different combinations, knowing that there are many more possible, looking at the various segments that exist. I mean, just an offhand count on my part, it looked like there are about 36 different segments that add up into those 20 trails. Some of the segments are very short, but they're necessary to include in order to fully connect a trail. And I think if we go through, we take the criteria and we can score each of those segments, and then build a score for the alternative route based on those segments. That would be seems like a good solid analytic approach. And Lance will have to talk about how one scores an alternative based on the merits of its various segments, because you want to, in order to not dilute the significance of any particular aspect of any particular segment. So that'll more to follow. We can talk about what that means in the analytics. Christy, you mentioned to me, and I'll bring up here, not to put you on the spot, but the idea of a graphic depiction of the routes, which I thought was would be a really interesting way to go. Do you want to elaborate on what you're thinking?
Well, sure, if people can hear me.
Yeah.
It's working right now? Okay. Well, one thing that's important is that it's so cool to look at it as segments, and I was looking at a map as I was drawing them, and I mean, as I was charting them, and just looking at each section. But when we score the segments, it's important to know that not all of them match up with each other. So, for instance, a route like taking Cahoon Hollow Road to Route 6, that won't match up with something that goes to Ocean View Drive. And Ocean View Drive may go all the way to Gold Pond Road or Grosse Hill Road. So it's not as simple as having all segments bit by bit. And I just thought maybe if we looked at it graphically, we could see that we're not missing anything.
Are you thinking of actually taking a map and doing an overlay? And like if we had 20 different routes, we'd have 20 different maps.
No, yeah, I
routes?
know. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way that everyone can process the alternatives so that we can really get proper feedback. You know, we've spent so much time exploring all the potential areas. I didn't know all of them before being on this committee. I've pursued some more than others so that I could be familiar with it. So how can we help everyone engage, like at the forum, so that we can really properly get their feedback
Mhm.
and make people feel really confident? I think it would also feel like the visibility would make people confident that there's nothing being hidden. It'd be like transparency.
Yeah. Ned.
Yeah, yeah, I think that would be fantastic, you know, just to have a total overview of all the different routes. And it would help recognizing how the segments come together or don't come together. I think, and I just think it, as Chrissy's alluding to, I think it would give people a better comprehension of where we're actually going with all this. Whereas if you just read the routes, it's not going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people. But if you can see it out there on a map, personally, to me, if I were in a position of trying to figure this all out, it would be so helpful. And I think that's a great proposal to try to get that done graphically, you know.
Now Ned, do you have, I know different people have looked at different means of getting a map of the area and then using software to chart out alternatives on it. Does your brother have something like that?
Well, the route that he and I have been working on, we have, there's a few different segments on that, and we do have that mapped out. So, but if, you know, and I can try to work with him and see if we can do the same thing with some of these other routes and start putting them together, maybe color code them and, you know, that.
Yeah.
And
That would be outstanding, especially if there was just a map as a starting point. And then that would
Right.
show all the various, if it's a map that shows the various routes, I mean, the various segments, some of them are pretty deeply buried
yeah,
in the Wellfleet Woods, but others aren't.
Yeah.
And if we could have that map as a starting point, I think electronically is the key. That we could then use to start tracing the routes out on, which sounds simple, but it's really perhaps not, unless we were to do it literally by hand and then scan them in. But to try to trace them out electronically is a little bit different challenge. Okay, maybe that's the answer.
There is
doing
a
it by hand.
program.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do wonder. There is a program called Oliver, and you can. It's got so much data input, in lots of different programs use it. I know the Cape Cod Commission is really helpful. So if we could get to a point where they could help us, they're really adept at mapping.
Okay. Well, that's a great thought. That may be worthwhile talking to Cape Cod Commission. What do you think, Rebecca? Do you think that would be something we should approach them on?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. I'll tell you what, separately, Christy and Ned, could you take a look at what you have available? Christy, if you've got the ability to check into a few options. Ned, because I know that you working with your brother have done some work. If you'd dust that off, so to speak, and see, and then Rebecca, perhaps we give a call to Cape Cod Commission and enlist their advice on how we could do this. Great.
Hey, Peter,
Yes, Tom.
just a quick one. In addition, in terms of best practices, and I don't know what the relationship is with DCR, but they do this for a living, right? Build bike paths. So maybe that's another place you could sort of knock on their door saying, hey, we're looking at options. Do you have some software recommendations and what have you? Just as another idea, in addition to what you asked Rebecca to do with the Cape Cod Commission.
Tom, thanks. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. We ought to include them as well. I might even check with DOT and see what they have to offer. Great. Any other discussion on the topic of the alternative routes?
Yeah, it's Helen.
Yes, Helen.
If you want to contact these agencies, and I hope that you do, you need to do two things. You need to delegate here at this meeting officially who's going to do it, right? Vote.
Mhm.
Otherwise, that person won't be clearly representing you. That's pretty important.
Okay.
The other thing is we have a policy, and I'm about to look it up and send it to Mia. May I send it to you so you can screen share it in case the others want to look at it? I'll send it to Peter and I'll send it to Mia. The select board has a policy that if you contact an agency with an email, it has to sort of go through the select board. I'm going to send it to you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I'm going to try to send it to you. I don't know if I can get it out of the town website setup. But if you look under, if I can't send it to you right now, which will be evident, please go and look at under select board policy, that policy, which is identified with a pretty clear title, I think. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Regarding engaging the Cape Cod Commission, DCR and DOT, I'd recommend that Rebecca and I be the ones to contact them. That's my going in suggestion. Is there any discussion? How do you feel about that, Rebecca?
That works for me.
Okay, well,
Peter, I'm sorry, it's Helen again.
yes.
We just went through a whole mess with this at the select board meeting. If you contact them together, it becomes something where it's funky in terms of the open meeting law. You can't, maybe you can contact them together, but you can't discuss it together and work on it together outside of the meeting. So you might want to call the open meeting law people about it. We're all getting very careful about process here, but I don't feel like sitting in a select board meeting and listening to people yell at your committee because you didn't do it just so. Thank you.
So thank you for making.
Asking about software recommendations, I can do that. So if everybody
Yeah,
wants
just not one of you.
in that
That's
email-
fine. Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Okay, so I move that Rebecca be our person to contact Cape Cod Commission, DCR and DOT to explore this idea of the software for route mapping. Any seconds?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. Good. The moving through the agenda, we're done there. Other route issues. We have talked about the topic has come up of putting together a set of questions that we expect to come up when it comes to the analysis. Lance has seen this in some of his work as being like a list of frequently asked questions. I've seen it, we called it something different when it comes to proposing concepts that are to an audience, essentially like a top 10 list of questions. Oftentimes putting the answers together is as valuable as being able to answer them, but putting the answers together a lot of times leads to good information just for the committee. So we had, I'd put a call out for anyone who had candidate questions. I received a little bit of input by email, but I wanted to throw it out for a discussion also. Does anybody have any questions they wanted to add to that list? And for those who aren't on the committee, the idea is questions that we would answer, that we would be able to answer about the analysis from the public, that would include things like what's the need for a bikeway in the first place? What kinds of users will be allowed on a bikeway? A lot of us have written in and spoken up telling you what we wanted to see. Have you taken that into account? Who will pay for the bikeway? I mean, a lot of this, I'm basing some of these on inputs that some of you emailed to me this past week. Oh, thanks for putting that up there, Christy. Are there any, did anybody bring additional questions to this meeting that they wanted to talk about or add to the list? Our top 10 questions are up to 21. Yeah, go ahead, Ned.
Yeah, I had a couple, again, just trying to pull out any possible question, but maybe people ask, is there going to be lighting on the trail? I doubt it, but you know, just as a possible. What is there going to be any major disruption of wildlife habitat? I don't know if that was in those previous questions. And then another one, I thought maybe people might be asking, is there going to be cell phone reception way out there in the woods? So, and then another one, I thought maybe people might be asking, how safe is it going to be in terms of, you know, wildlife out there like coyotes or whatnot, and people might be worried about that, families or whatnot. So those are just a few things I thought.
Good, thank you. I just wrote those down. We can add those to the list. Again, at this point, we're collecting ideas on what we want to, what we feel we need to be able to answer. Good. Any other inputs?
Lighting.
What's that?
Oh, I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I was going to say the lighting is such an interesting question because I think some people will really want it and some people really won't. So that sounds like a good thing to explore.
Well, I think it's something that would be good for us to be able to address. It does get into a gray zone. There are some questions we'll get to design features for the trail. And of course, design features comes after route selection, but it's certainly something we can be thinking about, you know, leading the target a bit here. Okay, thanks. So let me make sure we've collected any public input on what we should be considering as far as other questions that might come to mind. We've tried to address a lot of points in the various goals and objectives of the analysis, but you know, for public presentation, you know, a lot of times the audience starts with a set of questions in its mind, and we want to make sure that we can address those by anticipating them.
I think Helen's hand is raised, or
oh, I see a hand raised. Yes.
No, I was just being sloppy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. We wanted to make sure we included everyone. Okay. Any other topics for our meeting?
Oh, you know what? Another thing to list for the question. Sorry, we can go back. I think another question, I'm not sure if it was on there, will be about maintenance and plowing for winter commuters. I've seen that question raised sorry, go ahead. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, Peter, just one other thing. You might want to put something to the effect of where DCR, I see you have MassDOT in there in terms of funding, but what's the current position with DCR on alternatives, right? I think your minutes of in December had, those letters that went back and forth from DCR and the town administrators and yourself maybe, but I mean, that would be a question I would ask, is DCR doing this? What are they doing? What's the impact on the current project? I don't know if there'll be pushback on that, but it's just something to put out there. So thanks for that.
No, it's a great input. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, we definitely want to be able to answer that. Good. Okay. So in addition to the, are there any other inputs on these questions? We'll keep building this. This is a draft list. Coming up with the questions is the easy part. Answering them will be what takes some study. Some of these, by the way, and I mentioned this for Helen in particular, answering some of these questions will involve engaging DCR and DOT. So do you see any problem with us maintaining that working relationship with them to get clarification on some of their points? Because the trail in Wellfleet will certainly follow precedent with what's been going on with the rail trail in many respects. But there will be some points that we want to confirm with them. Do you see that as being any kind of issue? Helen might not.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I had to slide things around. I just reread this policy. I'm about to send you an email, which you don't have to read. The gist is, if you want to express an opinion, let's say you guys discuss something and you're contacting an agency or staff, I'll read it to you. It's really quick. Yeah, except that it's not, ugh, what a nuisance everything is. Hold on. Sorry. Okay.
We're all going to have that song stuck in our head all day.
I'm really sorry. I usually I wanted to remain mute, but clearly I'm unable to. Thank you. The policy says if a committee, that is to say board, commission, anything, wants to express an opinion to an agency or to staff, as the policy stands now, you have to have the document approved by the select board. However, if you're not delivering an opinion, right? My take on that, as only one person, not representing the select board, obviously at this meeting, I'm just, a fly on the wall who's making a lot of buzzing noise. That's different. You see what I mean? In other words, if you contact them and ask them a question or something, you're not having reached a conclusion after a decision, after discussing it, acting on it in your committee. You're not delivering something which represents the town's point of view. That's different. I think you should think about it and make your own decision. And you are about to get this policy and you can open it up and read it and go from there. But I find it frankly onerous, given that you have been delegated officially with a charge, which was created and approved by the select board, to do what you're doing, and you're doing it wonderfully well, and I'm thrilled to be at this meeting. So I'm going to send this off. I can't open the link right now because I haven't sent it to you yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. We'll take a look at that and make sure that we conform to it. I think that, yeah, if reasonable interpretation allows us, we're going to be able to, we would expect to be able to contact the state agency or the Cape Cod Commission with a question, just so we can get factual input that we can build into our planning here pursuant to our charge. But not to contact them and say, and state a position on behalf of the town of Wellfleet, because that obviously would be unless we've coordinated it with others in the town. Okay. Well, yeah, Lance.
I just, in the context of these questions, I'm looking ahead to the possibility that we might want to put them on a town website so that people could access them. And I wanted to raise the question of how do we do that? And should someone be tasked to find out how is it allowable for us to have a FAQ section with questions and answers? And if so, how do we go about it? Because it seems it would be in the community's interest to have such a thing.
Thank you for raising that. That would be a great, it strikes me as being a real advantage if we could post that out publicly so that people could see it. And I'll be happy to take the action personally to talk to the town hall and see what's possible.
Thanks.
Okay, I will, and once we find out, of course, then we'll take action from there. But we'll definitely have some prep time here to get these questions, to put some answers together for these questions before we post them. Okay, any other topics for our meeting? If none, then I make a motion that we adjourn. Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Okay, good. Enjoy the snow today.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.